Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the fine members over at Grand Theft World and all the live stream listeners around the world. Welcome to tonight's show. We're going to get deep into this past week's news in Grand Theft World history. We're going to start with looking at stories like James O'Keefe's being sued, which is not new for O'Keefe. He usually wins his lawsuits, but the interesting part is he's being sued by Project Veritas, which is their way of saying, tell us that you're a loser without being a loser. That's what you do after you fire the key instrument of your success. And then because you don't know how to raise money on your own, just go sue James and prevent him from doing his work elsewhere. We're going to dig into that story because it's about free speech and free journalism. And those who seek to crush such things might not be our friends. So we're going to keep apprised of that situation.
Major breaking news today. Project Veritas is suing James O'Keefe, as well as it appears to be two other employees. Now, this just dropped. I've got confirmation from the legal team. It is 100% confirmed. We have the PDF right here, and I'll go over just a few details of the case here. The gist of it is that they say that James O'Keefe, as the founder and someone who's under contract with Veritas, has enriched himself, breaching a bunch of contracts, fiduciary duty, etc. I'm not a lawyer, and there's probably going to be a way better analysis from, say, Viva Fry and Rakeda and other legal YouTubers. But seeing as this is major breaking news, I definitely want to jump on this and tell you what's currently going on. We have the court document here. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, complaint and demand for jury trial. Now, the fascinating thing here is the fact that this has gone to a lawsuit already means I have to assume there were attempts to negotiate beforehand, fell apart, and now we've ended up with this. They say, being known as the founder of an organization does not entitle that person to run amok and put his own interests ahead of the organization. Defendant James O'Keefe failed in his duties to plaintiff Project Veritas, causing it serious and significant damage. O'Keefe must be held accountable, and as must the organization O'Keefe created. Defendant Transparency 1, LLC, DBA, O'Keefe Media Group, for suborning his violations. Similarly, two individuals formerly affiliated with plaintiff, defendants R.C. Maxwell and Anthony Iatropoulos, breached their own contracts with plaintiff for the benefit of OMG. Plaintiffs, Project Veritas and Project Veritas Action Fund, by their attorneys, allege as follows. They say the employment agreement also prohibits O'Keefe, during and after his employment, from contacting, soliciting, or otherwise communicating with any person or entity that is a donor or prospective donor to Veritas, whom employee learns of, or with whom employee otherwise comes into contact as a result of employee's employment. Very interesting. So let's get to the allegations. They go to mention that they suspended O'Keefe pending the completion of an investigation into alleged misconduct. O'Keefe had allegedly used Veritas credit card for personal expenses. These are all allegations, mind you. It's not been proven. Going to mention why he was suspended. But why for the lawsuit? They say O'Keefe breaches his employment agreement. On February 17th, O'Keefe formed OMG. Notes on its website that it's located in Mamaroneck. Is that how you pronounce it? Mamaroneck, New York, which is where O'Keefe lives and where Veritas is headquartered. According to its website, OMG is a media organization managed by O'Keefe with substantially the same mission and structure as Veritas. I do believe it's a private corporation, though. The OMG website refers to its never being shut down again, because O'Keefe owns it. Forming and operating OMG was in violation of the employment agreement's prohibited outside activities provision. This is dirty. Bro, dude quit. He's gone. He can do what he wants. This is nuts.
Next story up, President Obama, former President Obama, and his former Vice President Biden, they want the United States to be like Australia. And Obama specifically said, can't we just go take their arms? Can't we just seize the guns like we did in these other countries? It's an interesting thought, but I don't know if he's aware of the history of how this country came around in the first place.
In Australia, you had one mass shooting 50 years ago, and they said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. That is normally how you would expect a society to respond.
Anyone want to take a guess what they did in Australia with the guns?
Just 12 days later, the then Prime Minister John Howard pushed through a sweeping set of gun regulations, despite a lack of support from his rural constituency.
I'm sorry about that, but there is no other way. There is no other way.
Within a month, the government passed the National Firearms Agreement, transforming gun legislation in the country.
The hardest things to do in politics often involve taking away rights and privileges from your own supporters.
The tough new laws banned the sale and importation of all automatic and semi-automatic rifles and shotguns, and perhaps most significantly, called for a massive mandatory gun buyback. Australia's government confiscated and destroyed nearly 700,000 firearms, reducing the number of gun-owning households by half.
People used to say to me, you've violated my human rights by taking away my gun. And I'd say, look, I understand that, but will you please understand the argument? The greatest human right of all is to live a safe life.
New licensing requirements were adopted and a national firearms registry was established. The law says Australians need a genuine reason for having a firearm, such as sport shooting or for agricultural use. It doesn't include self-defense. People must go through background checks and wait 28 days before they can buy a gun. The government also spent $375 million to buy back 640,000 civilian-owned guns and then destroyed them.
First, there was a mass shooting, then background checks. Then they created a gun registry. Then they banned semi-autos, and then they confiscated them. That is what Obama is using as an example of what he thinks we should be doing here in the US, but then tells gun owners that the slippery slope thing is silly. Prime example, take Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. In 2010, this is what he said to a group of people who were making the same arguments we are making right now with respect to these gun control measures being a slippery slope.
Fear in here is that the first step towards registering your guns is just the first step towards taking away guns from everyone. That's never going to happen because here in Canada we have a culture that has grown up with guns and that respects the need to go out into the wilderness and shoot things from time to time.
Now, fast forward to 2020, where he did this.
Effective immediately, it is no longer permitted to buy, sell, transport, import, or use military-grade assault weapons in this country.
Then fast forward again to 2022, where he did this.
Today, our national freeze on handguns is coming into force. From today forward, it is no longer legal to buy, sell, or transfer a handgun in Canada.
Oh, it gets worse. Fast forward again to 2023, and he's now trying to ban hunting rifles.
A 32% increase in violent crime, a 90% increase in gang crime. Murder rates now rising again this year, year after year. And what's his solution? To ban Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle. In fact, he wants to ban hundreds of thousands of hunting rifles and spend hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. Why won't he leave hunters alone and go after the real criminals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear that we are not targeting law-abiding hunters and fishers. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to take the necessary measures to keep Canadians safe while respecting the rights of law-abiding Canadians. That's what Canadians expect. That's what we've been doing.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I get my information from the amendment that his government tabled in the committee.
That's right.
And I have it right here. A list of the firearms that he wants to ban includes the Webley and Scott wild fowl gun. Fowl is in wild turkeys and wild ducks. That's right in the list that his government put forward of guns he wants to ban. Mr. Speaker, why is he more concerned with protecting wild turkeys from hunters than he is concerned about protecting Canadians from criminals?
We also have Neuralink got FDA approval. So now the Food and Drug Administration has approved Neuralink for somebody's heads, not mine, not yours, hopefully, but it does pose an interesting conundrum if there's people wandering around with part of their mental capacity being outsourced to some place that could maybe turn them off at some point. We don't know what the capacity of Neuralink is. Hopefully you'll just be able to tweet with it and that's about it, right? No, I don't think so. I think it's going to keep going.
The United States Food and Drug Administration has finally given their approval for Elon Musk's brain implant company Neuralink to begin their first ever clinical human trial. Let that sink in. This is not just a big deal for Neuralink, but it is an amazing new opportunity for the field of neuroscience. Brain-computer interface is nothing new, it's been around since the 90s, but the approach that Neuralink is taking with their invasive BCI implant is entirely novel. The way that this company is leveraging modern technology to create an ultra-high bandwidth interface directly into the cerebral cortex is light years ahead of anything that has come before. The window of opportunity for Neuralink to change the world is open.
We have new Epstein evidence this past week. There's several pieces. First off, we're going to see evidence tonight on the show from somebody who was in that incarceration place, the MCC holding facility in New York City. And we're going to examine the standard operating procedures that obviously were not followed. And that's going to lead you to believe that probably Epstein didn't kill himself.
I spent over 4 years in MCC, where Jeffrey Epstein was. So I know what it is to be on the 10th floor in those solitary confinement cells where Jeffrey Epstein was. I know what it is to be a high-profile inmate like Jeffrey Epstein was. Well, actually, he was probably the #1 highest-profile inmate in this country, in probably ever, I would think, because of his involvement with so many people on all sides of the aisle in other countries, he was also accused of being an operative. Whether that's true or not, who knows?
So, what you saying?
What I'm saying, he definitely did not kill himself. That's 110%.
Okay.
So
then what happened?
Now, what happened is our Attorney General, Barr, completely lied to every citizen in this country when he said that he was going to look into the investigation. And I believe he was in Texas when he said, somebody asked him, one of the media outlets asked him, Barr, did you look into this? And he said, yes, I did. And there was nothing there to look into, so I dropped it. And then the follow-up question was, what do you mean there was nothing there for you to look into? And he says, well, I watched the video and no one entered the tier. Stop right there. So what Attorney General Barr said is, all you people are too fucking stupid, so I can really abuse you all. I don't want to sound like my cousin Vinny, abuse yous. I don't want, and I'm going to insult everybody's intelligence. But he forgets that a lot of us dummies that were in jail know the system. And here's the system for the people who don't know. If a count is not cleared because he said 2 guards fell asleep and did not do the count, so they did not find Epstein dead until the next morning. That's so fucking insulting and laughable, because if that occurs, then they hit the deuces in the jail. They try to contact the guards upstairs, and it can't be 1, it's got to be 2. Have to walk and do counts. So I'll walk you through that. When they do a count, they go into each cell, and if somebody's not moving, they kick the door or bang the door. If it's a dorm-like cell, they hit your rack, your bunk, with their stick or their light, and they make you move your foot or your hand, because in the past there was dead bodies, and they had to make sure while you're sleeping you're really alive, not dead. Okay. In these lockdown cells, there's cameras in a lot of the cells, and there's cameras on the tier. So when Barr said that nobody went on the tier, it's impossible, because you need 2 guards. If they fall asleep, they can't, because control downstairs calls up and they cannot clear the count in the building. And if that's what occurs, they don't clear the count, they hit the deuces, because they think there's a hostage situation upstairs in that tier if nobody answers. Or they think the guards were killed. So they cannot, nobody moves, they lock down the whole facility. Whether there's any movement at all in that facility by anybody, it's completely stopped. They bring their, what they call, different, depends on the jail itself, what they call their units, special units. And they'll call outside SWAT to come to the building with armed enforcement because they're worried about hostages, prison breaks, and murder of the guards.
We also have Pfizer having used much of their money, not only to control mainstream media, you knew that, but they also controlled the hospitals, the politicians, and anyone else who would take their money to turn their head and cough and screw over their fellow Americans on the biggest crime of the century, for sure. That was the COVID pandemic. So new evidence coming out about that. Not so surprising, but in league with that, Pfizer also had this experiment going on in Israel. There's a new study this past week where no man under 50, no healthy male under 50 died from COVID in Israel, which begs the question, why are they mandating so many children to have the vaccine to go to school?
Headline, Epic Times, 0 young healthy individuals died of COVID-19, Israeli data shows.
It's probably good data because then they volunteer to experiment on the entire.
So we covered this before, and in that story, Israel was bragging. The story was bragging about how Israel has all this data. They're way ahead, and they had a special deal with Pfizer to get the vaccine first and all that stuff. Remember? And so in order to get that, they would had to provide all this data.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guess
the
what?
Results of the experiment?
Now they don't have the data. Watch this, right?
Oh.
So 0 healthy individuals under the age of 50 have died of COVID-19 in Israel, according to newly released data. 0 deceased of 18 to 49 years of age with no underlying morbidities, the Israeli Minister of Health, MOH, said in a response to a formal request from an attorney. So there was a Freedom of Information request, and they wanted to get the data on that. And the Ministry of Health said that there were 0 people deceased between the ages of 18 and 49 from COVID who didn't have underlying morbidities.
Oh, you don't say.
That's what they say. Okay, but there's more to this. That's not the end. Officials noted that the statement only applies to COVID-19 deaths where the Ministry of Health conducted an epidemiological investigation and had received information about the underlying diseases. So that doesn't mean all people between 18 and 49 who died. That just means the ones that the Ministry of Health conducted an investigation on and had received information about. What? So I thought the Ministry of Health had all this unbelievable amounts of information, but now they're saying we don't really have that much. But the writer in this article says 0 is very, very clear number and cannot be subject to interpretation. Zoev Yehekzekli, a specialist in internal medicine and medical management and former lecturer in the Department of Emergency and Disaster Management at the Tel Aviv University in Israel, told the Epic Times. So this guy says 0, it's pretty clear what's happening. Why? So if there was 0 deaths, why were all the extreme measures of school closures, vaccination of children, and lockdowns needed? That guy added.
Also, the title of this episode is Premature Obsolescence. That's the term and the phrase I've always used for it, but it's inspired by last week's Truth Stream Media release. They released it while we were doing the show last week. So when I got done, I got to sample some of the planned obsolescence work of Aaron and Melissa Dykes. It was fascinating. It was fantastically well sourced. The B-roll is impeccable. You know, how they visually tell the story.
Like the car can warm your butt, for example, but only if you're willing to pay a monthly fee that unlocks the butt warmer ability. So in other words, the company is offering a subscription service for features the vehicle is built with and already capable of. They're just locking those features behind yet another paywall in addition to what's already been paid for the car. And it's not just butt warmers either. So like this article from The Verge is talking about how they have a $1,200 annual subscription that improves performance by boosting output from the motors by 20 to 24%, increasing torque and shaving 0.8 to 0.9 seconds off of a 0 to 60 mile per hour acceleration. So you could pay extra for your car to go a little faster, which it can already do, but if you don't pay extra, it won't. This is not physical hardware upgrades. It simply is unlocking the full capabilities of the vehicle, which is openly indicating that Mercedes is intentionally limiting the performance of their cars so they can sell that extra performance later as an optional extra. And it's not just Mercedes, it's a lot of car companies that are doing this. Toyota has a thing now where people who have remote start, where they use their key fob to start their car remotely, like cool it off in the summer and stuff like that, or warm it up in the winter, it runs through a phone app. And so now they're going to start charging $8 a month or $80 a year for people who have been doing that already to be able to use their key fob to start their car remotely. Stuff like that. That's what's going on, okay? And they're calling it, quote, activating in-car features or something, which you can imagine the buzz phrase infested meeting with the ad execs who came up with this nonsense and how fun that was.
Now let's see who's really behind these bandages.
Charging money now for pre-existing features.
Well, they sure had everything figured out.
Let's just cut the euphemistic bullshit for a second and be George Carlin levels of clear here, all right? Car manufacturers are hurting because people have been buying less cars for a while now, okay? So they're coming up with new ways to generate revenue from a car sale after the car's already been purchased, leeching off their customers by restricting already built-in vehicle features so they can sell them later as an ongoing subscription, which is not about the customer at all in any way whatsoever, and is strictly about figuring out ways to generate more revenue and suck more money out of people, period. There's no other way to put that. I'm sorry. That's such a crap thing to do.
And also, we're going to take a look at Plandemic 3, which premiered last night in Austin. It was a very exciting premiere, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, it's one of the best documentary films I've ever seen. It's very well composed, thoughtfully composed, and just about anybody could watch it without probably having a triggering event, which is nice. You could watch it with the family, and you guys can all be better for it. Tonight's guest is John Kleizek, author of the book School World Order. And without further ado, let's go to tonight's kickoff with Luke Radowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And let's see what his report from earlier today can lead us into.
See, that's what they don't want you to know. Because the thing is, we were the original Irish. We were in Ireland years before we were the original Irish people. I'm telling you, the pubs, the beer, all that, we made that up. And the thing is, they trying to get Tory now. They trying to get Tory because they know we the original leprechauns. We the real leprechauns. We was leprechauns first. The golden end of the rainbow, that gold came from Africa. And the problem is, since they know that we the real leprechauns, they after our Lucky Charms. And that's what they want to see. They didn't want you to know that.
And from my interactions with the Irish people, that actually makes a lot of sense.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. there's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions. We can get into the show and share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.